Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Monday night panel. We're very pleased that joining Vic tonight is Jamie, Anna, Rob, and Andy. So we will be with them shortly. Just a couple of things. Tomorrow night we have Paul Caddis, a special on the sofa. There's not many people that will actually switch the night for, but Mr. Caddis is one of them. So he's on tomorrow night from 7. So please join us if you can. The other is the live event next Monday. We have Alan Mays, Andy Rowland, Jimmy Allen and Kenny Stroud joining us in the Legends Lounge. There are still tickets available. If you are worried about COVID, we are doing all we can to make it as comfortable as possible for you. There will be sort of space between the chairs and that type of thing. So if you have got any worries, please let us know and we can see what we can do for you. So the tickets are £7.50. And it's going to be a great night. Vic's going to do the comparing. And remember that in the days when they were playing, there was no social media. So all the stories we don't get to know. So there should be some gems that come out from that, I'm sure. So yeah, please join us. Tickets are available from our website, stfc-osc.com. And we hope to see you next Monday for that. So let's bring Vic on. Hi, Vic.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, those of us who are still angry about that League Cup semi-final defeat at Wolves might be able to help ease our anger with that evening next Monday. So some of us who are still spitting feathers.
Yes. But no, it'd be great because, as I say, there's no social media in those. We know everything these days, what goes on. In those days, it's all, we weren't privy to it all. So it'd be some good banter between them, I'm sure. So, and absolutely. I know that there's Andy Rowland hasn't seen Kenny Stroud for a long, long time. So it'll be good. So are you ready for this evening?
Very ready. Let me just say that
our guests on.
Yeah, just one more thing before we start. Okay. SAS Travel will be in their little cubby hole but at the town end tomorrow night. If you go along where the old ticket windows used to be, you'll find one of them open, and Mark and Sally will be in there. And they'll be taking bookings tomorrow night for Carlisle on Saturday. Carlisle on Saturday, which is almost full, Bradford City and Exeter. So if you want to book for any of those trips tomorrow night at the SAS Travel window in the town end, they'll be there tomorrow evening.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Vic. So let's bring Jamie. We've got Andy. We got Anna. Oh, sorry, Anna. Got Anna. And we have Rob. So there we go. So, of course, any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will get to them as quickly as we can. I am on my own tonight, so I'm doing the questions as well. So bear with me. So I will leave you to it. Enjoy.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. And it's nice to have a panel after a weekend win. Things have been a little bit sort of poor in that respect in the last few weeks. So lovely to talk about a victory. We were all at Tranmere last Tuesday night, were we not? Just nod your heads. We were all at Tranmere, getting very cold on that night up there in Birkenhead. We've lost Jamie for a moment, but hopefully he'll be back in a second. And I think we're all travelling to Carlisle on Saturday. So another long trip north. Right, let's start off with Saturday then. Andy, first and foremost, a 3-0 home win. It didn't look like that at half-time. What were your thoughts at half-time?
You saw a little bit of improvement from the previous games. As Rob was saying at the post-match, they made some changes. Garner had obviously there was a plan to change things when he got on the training ground. But there was definitely a change to the setup. The fact there was a flat back 4-3-3 really, wasn't it? And you could see there was a bit more intent. One positive, we were shooting from distance, which is something when we've got a strong wind in our favour, we seem to be reluctant to do that. But we've just commented before we came on. It was strange because at half time we were all a little bit bemused, indifferent. It was silence, wasn't it? So a little better, but it was still a little concerning, especially against a very poor side.
Yeah, Anna, the bottom of the league, and we play another side towards the bottom of the league on Saturday. So you just never know. I mean, the point is, where were you at half-time and what was your thinking? Because Ben Gladwin had gone off. Did that make a change, do you think, to the way we played?
Well, I think it undoubtedly did. I mean, if you look back at some of those really good away games in the first half of the season or the first quarter, some of those away performances in the first half were not unlike Saturday's, in that we dominated possession. Maybe we didn't have that many chances, but the opposition did not score. And in the second half, we picked up the momentum and went on to win those games, as you know. So I think, in a way, Saturday for me felt a little bit like that. It was coming on the backdrop of two straight defeats. So obviously, it doesn't matter how the win comes in many respects. You just bite your hand off for it, don't you? Just to get that stop that bad run. But the other thing I wanted to mention, and you talked about Gladwin. So if you look across our squad availability for Saturday, we had, I think, 7 players available to us, and that's either, the unavailable ones are either injury or they've actually left. 7 players who had played more than 10 games for us this season. I think it's 8 if you include Ryan East, and a lot of those have been from the subs bench. If you look at a team like Forest Green, they've got upwards of 15 players who've played, 15 plus games. So, and Gladwin, I think has made most appearances for us this season. So, I'm a fan of Gladwin. I don't think, I know a lot of people, he's not their cup of tea. Him going off actually possibly changed it, because Aguiar gave us a different dimension. He was on the front foot, he looked to go forward. And I think that had an influence in the second half. Because, as you said, Scunthorpe were a poor side, and they did a bit of half-assed pressing, but not really very well. And that allowed us to get into the pockets behind. So Barry and McCurdy, second half, did that really effectively. So overall, we won, and I think that's the main thing for Saturday, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, we won. Anna mentioned Ricky Aguiar, Rob. I thought he did all right when he came on, didn't he? For a player who we've not seen much of this season. I think we saw him at Cambridge, didn't we, in the League Cup and a couple of other times. But he did all right when he came on, didn't he?
Yeah, it's what you want to see, isn't it? All these players who have been squad players for the entire season, you see very little of them, maybe the odd Johnson's Paint Trophy game or something like that. But when they get their opportunity, you want to see them grab it with both hands. And he's had a few minutes in a couple of substitute appearances recently, but really not long enough to show us what he's made of. But to get best part of an hour and play in the way that he did, he was exactly what we needed on that day. I think that's the difference. And again, picking Anna's point up, I'm a Gladwin fan as well. I think the way that he passes the ball is pretty much second to none in our team for most of the time. The problem is his language style does get people on his back. And he had started to pass the ball really well, spreading diagonals across the pitch in that first half. When he went off, I feared we wouldn't have that same level of passing ability. But it wasn't what we needed. What we needed on the day was go forward momentum, somebody with the ball to really take it to the opposition. Because as you say, Scunthorpe were limited in what they had available to them. They're clearly struggling confidence-wise. And when you come up against a team like that, you've just got to swarm all over them. You've got to give them none of the ball, and you've got to give them no opportunity to have any confidence in the game. And I thought we'd started pretty well to do that. We gave them a couple of opportunities. They never took advantage of it. And then second half was as good a performance for 45 minutes as we put in for a long, long time.
Yeah, very much so. Got a couple of comments coming in already. This from Kevin. Thoughts on the system change? Brilliant to see. Well, we've just been talking about that. Greg says, don't let Saturday's game cloud your judgment. Scunthorpe were a very poor side. Well, I think we've made that point too. Richard says, I think the manager answered a few of his critics, of whom I was one, at the weekend, broke out of the strategic straitjacket. Time will tell if it was a one-off or a proper lesson learned about adapting to the opposition. Jamie, I think you're back with us now. Your thoughts on Saturday? There we were at 0-0 at half-time. Nothing terribly exciting to write home about, but the second half, a really good performance.
Yeah, I think getting to half-time, it was a little bit of a non-event first half, really, wasn't it? I think we talked about earlier, there wasn't a lot of crowd enthusiasm in the first half, so I think it was one of those petered out, but fair play. They did. I think we got the first goal. That was what was important, and that was probably what drove the second half. But who knows how good a performance that is, because I'm not quite sure how poor Scunthorpe are in the bigger picture.
Well, they're bottom of the league, so it kind of gives you an indication, doesn't it? Nikki says, do we think top 5 is going to happen? Interesting. Well, top 7, I guess, would be okay, would it not? Bearing in mind what happened in the summer. Let's have a look. Tom Kavanagh says, Iandolo was definitely my man of the match. Would you go along with that, Jamie? I mean, let's talk about that pass. I mean, we're all going to talk about that pass because if Glenn Hoddle had done that, people would have been talking about that for years to come, wouldn't they? I mean, it was talk about defence splitting. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I think so. And I totally agree. I think he had a great game. I think hand on heart, I was probably one of those that was a bit unsure about him in the central midfield and him being picked ahead of other people. But I think he took his chance, and it's not the first great pass in the last few weeks, is it? We go back to the Colchester game and a couple of others. He's put some cracking crosses in the last few weeks. So full credit to him. He seems to have taken his chance.
Well, if you remember at Colchester, he put 3 in about 5 minutes, didn't he? One which we converted, and there were 2 others which could easily have led to goals. Andy, this is Kevin says, thoughts on Barry, Louis Barry. What were your thoughts on him? He didn't seem to do much in the first half, but maybe came to light in the second. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, the first half, I thought to myself, here we go. We've got another, undoubtedly, he's got basic, talents, but another sort of academy chap that comes into, I think, was it Matty Hayward said about hairy-arsed defenders. It was a boy against men, wasn't it? And he looked very ineffective, but he obviously improved the second half. He's clearly gifted. And I mean, he caused them enough problem to have sort of 3 penalty shouts for obviously the third one we got. I actually think that he might end up playing on the right-hand side. It depends when Garner changes around the system. He could be quite an effective wing back on the right-hand side, especially if you want to use Iandolo on the left. So certainly the second half, I was a lot happier. And there's obviously, there's going to be room for improvement, but I think we might have a good one there. We might.
Well, we'll see. Can he do it on a cold Saturday in Carlisle?
Indeed.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Liam says, what about this, Anna? I like the solidarity that Cooper and O'Brien are bringing in. What about that defensively? Did we look tighter on Saturday? There were moments when Scunthorpe looked like they might break through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it, for those that pairing being completely new and pretty inexperienced, really. I'd like to see them still move the ball quicker. So we put ourselves under so much pressure so often at the back. Against Scunthorpe, we got a bit lucky with with a couple of chances that they didn't take. With other opposition further up the table, that's not going to be the same. So we do need to move that ball quicker. And O'Brien particularly, I get the impression sometimes that he switches off a little bit. He's not quite there sometimes. And if your opposing striker is 20 yards away and you've got the ball, move it then. Don't wait till he's 5 yards and on top of you. So I like the way they're developing. I mean, they're big lads, aren't they? And that's probably what you need in League Two. It also gives us an option at attacking corners. So, yeah, I'd like to see how they continue to pair up together. Not necessarily always as a back four. I don't see that Garner's always going to play back four. But yeah, interesting one. Couple of good potential lads there.
You were in the commentary box on Saturday, Rob. Dion Conroy, did you pick up any intelligence on what's going on there, or was it we know it's straight injury? What are we hearing?
Vic, it's very rare I pick up intelligence on anything. As far as everyone's concerned, it's an injury. Until we hear otherwise, that's what we have to assume. So we've commented before, haven't we, that the one thing that was great for this season to bring Conroy back into the fold was the fact he was fit and he was able to play regular games. The trouble with that, of course, is when things start to go wrong, people look for scapegoats, and it was his time, unfortunately. He was the longest serving player, and I don't know why it's a trait within our supporter base, but it does seem to be. When you look at the goals that we've given away this season, a lot of them have been as a result of us trying to play out from the back. I think we'd all agree that playing out from the back is the better way to watch cultured football, but there's a time and a place for it. And the one thing, when you look back to Saturday, you go with a flat back four and 2 centre backs who aren't necessarily going to always look to pass to each other. The number of balls forward from those defensive areas this weekend was much, much higher and much, much quicker than it has been in previous games. That made a massive difference to the performance. You had an extra man in midfield. Suddenly you were appearing on the edge of the box with 3 or 4 players, whereas we've been reliant on Tyrese Simpson for most of the season to be up there on his own to hold it up, to get players alongside him. So it was noticeable, the difference on Saturday. There was a far better feel to the way that the team was set up for a home game, I think. Whether we could play like that successfully away from home, though, I'm not so sure. I still think our 3 centre-backs suit our away style.
Yeah. Ian says, once again, the strong wind was a factor and at times a leveller. Well, I tell you what, Jamie, I've certainly felt that strong wind in the stand. That's as cold as I've been at the county ground in many a long year. I mean, we do seem to have these Saturdays where that old wind tunnel is in operation, don't we? I mean, it regularly around about this time of year, it just seems to be there all the time.
Yeah, we haven't got to Carlisle on Saturday yet, so we may well have a new wind tunnel that's Scottish bound, I think, on Saturday. It was a weird one, wasn't it? I think we was, as you say, we were standing outside the ground before the game, and it was blowing us off our feet. So I think you have a little bit of sympathy looking at the corner flags and what was going on, and then that should be more for us to play it on the floor and play some decent football rather than hoof it in the air. But it's the same for both teams, isn't it? At the end of the day, we should have the quality to be able to take on most of these teams. We just got to believe in the way that we do it and see what happens. But yeah, I think Exeter are paranoid, aren't they, from our kind of wind tunnel?
Well, I don't think they're as paranoid as they were the last time they came here, because obviously they won. And actually, talking of them, they can go in the top 3 tomorrow night. They've got Harrogate at home. Sutton can go in the top 3 tomorrow night. So an important game, an important evening in terms of League Two result. What about that top 5 finish? Oh, hang on, I'm just going to go through these before we go any further. What about that question about top 5 then? Yeah, it was from Nikki. Do we think top 5 is a possibility, or is it just, 5th, 6th, and 7th? What are we aiming for, Andy? What would you say?
I was on record last week, and I said, by your friend Sean, top 3, and I still stand by it, because I think we got, those people that go home and away. It's been a tough last couple of months, and 11 points in 36 out of 36 before Saturday. And it's been tough. We've seen some real bad times. Barrow, Colchester, and Tranmere. They're enough to give children nightmares. But we're 6 points off 3rd at the moment. So, and it's 3 points for a win. So, and was it 16 games to go?
Yeah.
So I think every team has a bad run. We may have had ours. Let's hope we've had ours. Let's hope we've got the structure right now, and these players are getting confidence. Why not? Why not? We're in a very good position to now move forward.
Well, Darren, sorry, Andy, go on.
Yeah, no, carry. That's fine.
Well, Darren makes a sort of similar comment in his way that Darren says, I think we have to enjoy the win on Saturday. No point in being negative. It's 3 points on the board. Time will tell. Bring on Carlisle. And that, Anna, is very much the case, isn't it? I mean, we were desperate for a win Saturday. If it had been that second goal in the 93rd minute, we'd have been quite happy with that, wouldn't it? A deflection that went up in the air, ballooned around about 6 times, and then somehow fell into the back of the net. We'd have been quite happy with that, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, that second goal was for me better than the first one. It's that sort of agonising wait to see whether it's actually going to drop over the line or whether the defender's going to get and clear it. So it's quite enjoyable in that respect. But just to go back to this question on top 5 or not, I think I feel optimistic about the future for the club. I feel optimistic about this season, even if we sit and finish just outside the playoffs or just inside. But I think realistically, I think we don't have the squad. Just talked before about how many players we've lost either through injury or loan recalls, and that's had a massive impact on us. Just through squad depth and also I think morale. I'm sure the morale took a hit in the end of January when players realised who wasn't going to be around. But I don't see it as a negative. If we creep into the playoffs, fantastic. That would be a great result for the season. I can't share Andy's optimism about making the top 3 purely because I think there are some strong sides up at the top who are stringing a lot of results together. Forget Forest Green, because I think they're pretty much gone.
Yeah.
But the others, I think, are capable of putting a run of 4 or 5 wins together, and I'm not sure I see that in us at the moment. I think we're still getting to know each other pretty much as it might have been at the beginning of the season. To be honest, it's like a restarted season, isn't it, for us?
Well, you made a very, very good point there. I was going to talk about, we got these new players coming in, hardly know each other's names for about 2 or 3 weeks, do they? So, then you've got to work out how each other plays. So it's a very good point. This is from Derek. Hello, Derek. I think I'm a little concerned with Louis Barry, as he is another that goes down so easily and spends time moaning about not getting the decision. Sean says, I hope that when the Carlisle ground is redeveloped, the corners are filled in, even if not seating, etc. That wind tunnel, laugh out loud. Yes, it is cold. Malcolm says, Andy, we've only got one of the pens because 2 of them were worthy of Tom Daly, who's doing some sort of challenge at the minute. He's sort of rowing, swimming, cycling, running, whatever he's doing. Ian Robinson says, will we ever score from a corner? Malcolm, Rob, Prem players can play out from the back. They do it quickly. 4th division players can't. Well, we saw that with Man City, didn't we, Rob? I mean, there's a difference in class in playing out from the back and playing out from the back. It's that simple.
Well, yeah, you've got to look at 2 things when you're playing out from the back, haven't you? You've got to have players with the ability to do it, which is one obvious point. The second point is people have got to move in front of them. And quite a lot of the problems that we've had for the defenders have been that they're just looking up and finding no options. And that's where the difference between Premier League and League 2 comes in for me. You look at Man City movement when they came down here in the FA Cup, and there were players all over the place. You just couldn't keep control of where they were going. At Swindon, it's completely different, and that I think is half of the problem. You can get away with it against lesser teams. You clearly can't get away with it against better teams. But I still look at the fact that if you can play football in this division, generally speaking, the teams who've gone up of recent years have been the better footballing sides. Everyone looks at League 2 and always thinks big centre halves, big centre forwards, hit it long. There'll always be teams like that, but more and more now, teams are starting to put the ball down on the ground and play proper football. And I think we've seen it this year. The better sides at the top of this division are the teams who are playing football, generally speaking. Sutton is the exception. There'll always be an exception. So you've got to find a way to do it. And I think on Saturday, hopefully, they've learned their lesson a little bit. Let's not tip-tap around at the back for 20 minutes, get everybody bored and not actually interested in the game. Let's try and be progressive, play through the midfield, because we have got them probably on paper as talented a midfield as any other team in this division, I would say, without any shadow of a doubt. That's where our strength lies. I don't like the fact that we see players rolling about on the floor all the time. It's one of my big pet hates, I have to say. If I see it from the opposition, I'd always call it out. So why wouldn't I call it out for my own team? So I do hope that goes out of our game quite quickly. But I still say, if you can play through midfield and you can join that forward line and that midfield together, opportunities will come. We are a striker short, in my mind. If we're to really challenge, Josh Davidson has to be injury-free for the rest of the season, has to play almost every minute and has to score probably another 15 goals. That's not likely to happen unless McCurdy, Williams, Payne when he's back, and fingers crossed Jack Payne is back ASAP, because he will make a massive difference, as we've seen. They're probably not going to chip in with maybe more than 5 or 6 each at the very most, and that's probably not enough. So we're going to need to see either improvement in the goal ratio from the defenders. We've mentioned set pieces. We all talk about set pieces all the time. When will we score from a corner? Well, it was Newport away and it was an own goal, but hey, so be it. You just don't know. But I still think we're probably, for me, a striker short of being a top 7 team.
This from Darren. You could add Orient away to the dismal list. I think it was so bad we've all forgotten it. I've got the black shirt behind me. Just
first half was all right.
They haven't won since though, have they?
Well, there you go. You see, this is from Steve. I think dismissing the criticism of Conroy's unfair. He consistently defended poorly prior to his injury. I don't see him as a scapegoat. I think in this instance, fans have no agenda against him. They were saying as they see. Kevin says we could win the next 3 games, all winnable matches. Danny says so desperately need their options up front, which is what you were just saying, Rob. Why can't we get a free agent? Right, where are you, Jamie, with this top 5 thing? Do you think there's a chance? What do you reckon?
I think there's always a chance. I think two points for me. I think if we're going to reach the top 5, I think Payne has to play 12, 13 of those remaining 16 games. Because I think Rob's right. He's been the biggest missing this season. I think he's the one that plays in that hole and links up the massive gap that at times appears between the midfield and the forwards. So I think he has to be fit and playing again. And I think the only bit that concerns me is you looked at that Tranmere game, you looked at the Exeter game, and the difference between the teams wasn't the starting 11. It was looking at the bench and looking at who they're able to bring on. And you looked at our bench, and when we brought people on, it didn't make us stronger. Whereas that Tranmere team and that Exeter team, they look stronger, and they look to have different options on the bench. And I just wonder whether we'll come slightly short. I hope not, but whether we'll come slightly short just because of that lack of options when it gets to the end of the season. Something to change the game in a bit of a different way.
Well, it'd be interesting to compare the last Exeter game with the one on March the 8th at Exeter, won't it? Just to see how we've changed or come further forward. Right, let's get into more of these. Ian says, not enough goals in us to get automatic, I fear. Graham says, is it just me or has anyone else noticed we seem to be uninterested when we have a throw-in? No movement most of the time. Wouldn't have happened under Lou Macari. I think he might have been a bit annoyed if there wasn't any interest. I don't know, Andy, what do you reckon about that? I mean, it is something you do notice actually from time to time, don't you? That we talked about lack of movement earlier, and at a throw-in, that's something you want, isn't it? A lack of movement. You want somebody to be available. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah, there are times when you just sit there and you think, when are you going to throw this in? In the end, it sort of ends up someone coming sort of within about sort of 6 feet of him, and then invariably, you know, a heavy touch back, and we lose possession. If you're talking about throw-ins, one thing we lack, most teams have got, is a long throw. And again, I would like to see, you know, maybe surely someone can throw the ball long, especially now that we've got Davison in there and we've got a couple bigger chaps, you know, in Cooper and O'Brien. I think it's quite a weapon. But it's just generally that it's been the malaise. I mean, I think Rob was mentioning earlier about how slow when we move out the back. There doesn't seem to be a lot of running around, a lot of not just throw-ins, but generally everywhere. So there does need to be a little bit more energy, I think.
Rob's having trouble with the cupboard by the look of it. Richard says, any club attracting 9,000 home gate in this division is clearly punching below its weight. Whether we manage promotion this season or not, it's coming soon now that we're not hampered by dysfunctional ownership. Like some of the panel, I'm relaxed on the timing. So, Anna, let's talk about a couple of players. And Josh Davison, who, let's be fair, hadn't had the, you know, he's took a time to settle in, but now he's got 2 goals. That penalty, he certainly didn't mess about with. The first goal he got, all right, we've already talked about it, somewhat fortuitous. But he's now got those 2 goals under his belt. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, he came to us we're having made very few appearances for Charlton. Clearly not match fit, and that showed when he went off sort of clutching his hamstring a couple of times, didn't he? But I think Saturday was the first time he'd made it through the full 90 minutes. So he's clearly going to go and be stronger and fitter, and that's going to play in our favour. He holds the ball up well. He does give us a bit of an out ball in that respect. He's got work to do to link up with McCurdy better, but he's going to grow in confidence through those couple of goals he's got. Whether he's the difficulty for us will be, as I think Andy mentioned, if he gets injured, we're a little bit in a mess, because just like with Simpson was our only physical option up front, Davison is now our only physical option up front. So we've got to think about what those contingencies are for if and when that does happen. I think I had a dream about Brandon Cooper being played up front, a bit like Antoine van der Linden, if you remember that in the days gone by. But we have to think about that, because there was the occasion, I think it was the Exeter game, when McCurdy and Barry were playing up front, and that clearly for me is not an option. You have to think about what happens if Davison either, you know, gets injured or can't make the full 90 minutes. But, you know, give him a chance. He's getting to fitness now. I think he's going to provide us with a different sort of option to Simpson, not as strong, not as fast, but clearly he's able to lead a line, in my view.
Any more of your dreams you'd like to share with us, Anna? We'd be happy to hear them. Obviously, it's interesting, Rob, isn't it? Because he had a chance at Colchester in his first game, didn't he, to put one away? And you could argue he should have put it away, quite frankly, on his debut. And now he's got those two. It is a monkey off the back of a striker, isn't it, to get that first goal?
It was the one topic of conversation, to be honest, that we had in that second half with the on Saturday. You were, as a striker, you desperately need that first goal to go in, don't you? And you don't really care how it happens. Everyone would dream of a 25-yarder into the top corner, or a special bit of skill in the penalty area, and you slam home the winner for that game. But it really doesn't matter. The confidence comes from the fact that the ball hits the back of the net. And if it's come off the back of your calf and you don't know too much about it and has spun in, it doesn't say that on the score chart, does it? It says Josh Davison scored, and that's all that matters. And that was a very confident penalty, I have to say, that followed it too. So that gives us another option potentially when it comes to set pieces. I'm very much in the same camp as Anna. I think he's going to give us something different. He's going to give us a lot of run. He's going to run his heart out. There's no doubt about that. He works really, really hard. The question mark will always be: is he going to get enough goals? And what happens if he's not there? Because exactly the same thoughts are going through my head. Jaden Mitchell-Lawson, Harry McCurdy, Louis Barry. None of those are hold-up players. We've got a lot of the same type of player. And that's where we are. When I say we were one striker short, for me, we needed to get a big lad like Big John Akinde, someone like that who, even if he's not going to play every week and is going to sit on the bench for 60 minutes and come on with half an hour left, the difference that makes to your team if you've got someone who can hold the ball in the opposition's half, rather than rely on people just to run at teams all the time. I think he may not necessarily fit the plans for Ben Garner, but you do need a big alternative, and we haven't got that if Davison's not fit. No.
Right, a couple of more comments. Mike says, loving the way Andy has replaced the curtains in his living room with STFC shirts. I'm sure his neighbour who supports a team that plays in yellow for some bizarre reason.
That's right. There is a reason for it, yes.
Oh, well, we'll ask you that in a minute. He's appreciating his new view, apparently. Derek says, Davison also makes good runs off the ball, dragging defenders out of position. We need our midfield players to take advantage of the spaces left. Mark says, I came over from Belgium for the Orient game, coming over for the extra away game next. Hope it's not the same. So we all. I think we can nick 7th. Not sure we've got enough to win the playoffs, however, but we would have taken that at the start of the season without doubt. Jamie, what about Josh Davison? And we're going to talk about Harry McCurdy in a minute, because his production rate is extraordinary. He's second in all 4 divisions for a player producing, which isn't bad, is it, for a player that we signed at the start of the season after an impressive game at Weymouth. What about Josh Davison? Has he got better for you?
I actually quite like what I've seen so far. I think it's unfair to compare him to Simpson because I don't think they're the same type of player. But I agree with the comment you just read out. Actually, I think his movement off the ball is very good. I don't think we're quite working with him on that movement at the moment, and that's lack of training or time, I think, on the pitch with him. But I think he will be a player that we need to cross the ball more for. And I think at the moment we're not finding those runs particularly into the box. So hopefully, if we can get more crosses into the box, I think that will benefit him and probably benefit us as a team. But I think his hold-up play has been pretty good. It's just going to take time. It's, as you said, we're starting from scratch again. I mean, he barely played before he came out on loan, so no wonder he's struggling with playing 90 minutes twice a week to start off with. So you'd hope his fitness will get better as well, and then maybe we've got a player on our hands. But I agree with Rob 100%. My fear is what happens if he's not there, and how we cope with that.
Yeah, it's the way he moves defenders out of the way. If you look at any decent striker who can hold up play, it's the way he backs into defenders and makes them move. And, you know, he's pretty strong. I think it's fair to say he's pretty strong. And that's what Tyree Simpson was beginning to learn, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. At the end of his loan spell, unfortunately, that he could actually move defenders out of the way. And just a comment on his first goal. If you watch the replay of that goal, he flicked out of the ball, so was obviously trying to influence the outcome. So fair enough. We'll give him that anyway. If we don't go up this year, we'll lose Williams, Payne, and Reed, says Kevin. That is a risk, of course, of which we take. Right, explain your neighbour, Andy, and why. And do you talk to the man or person? Do you?
I've set fire to the house a few times, and he keeps rebuilding it. So yeah, to live in darkest Dorset and have an Oxford United season ticket holder living next to you, it's life's tough. But you know, that's right. So I think I'm going to keep the shirts and that, and just hang them out the window permanently, just to sort of annoy them a bit more. So.
Yeah, don't blame me. So let's talk about Harry McCurdy then. As I said, his production rate in the top 4 divisions, he's second behind the player who's banged in all those goals for Fulham, which is quite extraordinary, really, when you think about it. So let's talk about Harry McCurdy then. If you looked at the Man City goal and then you looked at the goal on Saturday, almost identical. Brilliant finish from that brilliant ball from Iandolo.
He's mercurial, isn't he? I think the word. And we all know about Harry, and we all know probably he's not everybody's cup of tea. Well, he's not. Certainly certain managers. And, you know, one thing I'll give Ben Garner is due, he seems to be managing Harry very well. I mean, he's turning up every week. That's one thing. It's not as if he's in one week and out the next. He puts a shift in all the time. And anyone that can do what he's done against the Man City goal and the one on Saturday, I mean, that's quality. It was 2 touches. He's got pace and he finishes. And the other thing I like is also he attacks the front post. He's got an eye for the goal. So, I mean, he's impressing me more. When we saw him on at Weymouth that Saturday afternoon, we thought he was Sunday League, looked like a Sunday League player, didn't he, with his short socks around his ankles and that. I thought, a trialist, that's as far as it will go. But look at what he's doing. I can't speak highly of what he's doing for us. You know, there's not many teams have got that sort of quality of player at this level.
Anna, what's your thoughts? I mean, the point is he's got 14 goals. You can't knock that in February, can you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The thing about McCurdy, and actually Barry a little bit on Saturday as well, was that the opposition defence didn't know what they were going to do. So the best example of that, I think, is if you look back to the Bristol Rovers away game when McCurdy came on and changed the game, and that defence literally did not know what he was going to try. And actually, I'm not sure that Harry McCurdy knows what he's going to try every time. But you know, he does little flicks. He looks to get forward. He does like to attack that near post. And those, I think, all his first 8-9 goals were just put one touch, weren't they?
Yeah, they were one touch. Yeah.
The Man City goal was the first one he'd taken a second touch on. So, you know, he's getting in the box. He's getting in the right positions. He's taking the ball early at the near post, maybe, or wherever in the 6-yard box. So as long as you can keep him, relatively tame, because he's got a bit of a difficult streak to manage. And if Ben Garner can manage that, you know, fantastic. The fact that he signed up for another, I presume it's another year's deal.
Yeah, another season. Yeah,
next season is brilliant. But Harry McCurdy wants to be happy. He wants to be loved. He knows he's loved here. He's enjoying his football. He's playing. He's first name on the team sheet maybe. It's just how you get him to gel with the others as well, which will really take us forward. But yeah, I'm a big fan.
It's interesting, Rob, because when I was doing the extra game for BBC Radio Devon, the one word I used about Harry McCurdy is basically what Anna just said: unpredictable. I'm not even sure our players know what he's going to do, quite frankly. But then, you know, if you're a defender, that's a nightmare, quite frankly, isn't it?
Oh, he's as mad as a box of frogs, isn't he? You've got no idea what's coming next. So how on earth would a defender know what's coming next if none of us do, and neither does he? I mean, let's be perfectly frank. As Andy said a few minutes ago, in pre-season, it didn't even look like he'd get a contract. He got himself a contract, and look what he's done. He's gone from strength to strength. We could not have asked for a better strike rate than what he's actually come up with this season. So you can be critical. There's edges to him that need to be brushed off. There are lots and lots of things that you could do to try and change him. But do you want to change a player like that?
No.
It gets fans off their seats and it gets people excited. And we've had so many of those players down the years, and they're always welcomed at the county ground, because I think you just need that little bit of flair here somebody to get you off your seat. It's something that Swindon fans have always wanted, and they'll always get behind a player like that. Yeah, you'll get people who won't like it, but the vast majority of us just are quite happy to watch him develop.
Jamie,
he look forward to Saturday as well, won't he?
Yeah, he will do. We'll get on to that a little bit later. Yeah, Jamie, Rob's sort of stolen the words out of my mouth, because he is the one player who you think, hang on then, go on then. And I'm not comparing him to Don Rogers, but I saw him in his pomp. And whenever Don got the ball, you were excited. And the thing is with Harry McCurdy, you never know what might happen. It just might happen. So he is one of those players, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's one of those that you love to have him in your team, but you hate to be playing against him. And that's why he gets that's not kid ourselves. That's why he winds up crowds that he plays against, and everything the world's against him, and everyone wants to see the backside of him. That's what he's like, isn't it? You take it or leave it. But God, it'd be a much more boring team without him, wouldn't it? Compared to some of the others that we've got. And if we'd taken it at the start of the season, Christ, we were looking for a striker that'd get us 20 goals or 15 goals, weren't we? So, and for me, he's improving. Whatever you think of Gardner in terms of other players or developing, whatever, he seems to be getting the best out of him. Let's just hope that he can, last 2 more games before he gets booked again, so we don't lose him for a couple. And hopefully he just continues with that kind of strike rate, because I kind of agree with Rob. I don't know where else the goals are going to come from at the moment on a regular basis. So you're going to hope that he sticks with it for the rest of the season, and maybe he's found his home for once for a while.
Let's hope so, because we need players like that. I mean, we could all the way through English football. You can go back and talk about footballers who are slightly different and don't always get selected for various teams one way or another. But I tell you what, in the Arkle stand, which is pretty quiet generally, and I think 1, 2, 3 of us, 4 of us sit in the Arkles. I know, Anna, you don't, but he's the one player who kind of gets you up, and you're thinking, right, go on then, have a go. Here's a question then, Andy. Let's move on from Harry 14 goals McCurdy. And also, of course, the one downside is his bookings for. He's got to stop that. Right. This David says, who do we leave out if Payne is fit to start, Andy?
From Saturday?
Who do we accommodate?
Well, I would. Interesting one, because I think the team that finished, you'd sort of like put Reed and Payne in the middle, and probably. I just have Payne would be the first person on my team sheet. I think he's fantastic. Last year he was my player of the year. He was just superb, and he gives you that for a small bloke. He's very, very strong. Who would I leave out? I'd have to say depends on what system he plays on Saturday, but I would probably sort of Gladwin, and maybe Gladwin coming off the bench. I know we probably want to talk about this later, but Carlisle, remember what they were like down at Swindon at the beginning of the season? They were big and they were physical. So we probably need to sort of like have a real good think about how we set up, first of all, with that. And maybe not too much in the way of, probably a bit more solid, shall we say, to start with. So Gladwin's great, knocking the ball about, but I think Payne and Reed in the middle there.
Yeah, it's interesting, because when we saw Carlisle on that opening home game of the season, when it was all ballyhoo and carnival atmosphere and everything, they looked darn good to me. Yeah. And now look where they are. So
there's only 7 of there. I had a little look. There's only 7 of the team that played on Saturday against Colchester in their squad. So they've had a big change. So hopefully all the big units that were with us, because they did muscle us out big time at home, didn't they? They felt as if there was 12 people on the field that day of theirs. So let's hope.
Danny says both Barry and McCurdy play better in wide positions. We look better not relying on the wing backs. I mean, you want players in wide positions if you've got a big centre forward, don't you? Mark says McCurdy's progression has been immense, especially now he's cut down on the chat to the referee, focusing on his football. Garner has got the best out of him. Definitely surprised me after the start to the season. I think the first time we saw any indication of what he could do was at Supermarine in a friendly on a balmy summer's evening when he went round the keeper and put it in the net. Anna, what about Payne, and where does he fit into this mid? I mean, he obviously fits into the midfield. Who drops out for him?
I think it's a bit like the first half of the season. Gladwin, I don't think it was ever the design that Gladwin would play 90 minutes every week. He's clearly struggled with injuries recently, and I got the impression that the aim was to play him, on a Saturday but not a Tuesday. So for me, the midfield is definitely about a bit of rotation, which includes Williams. So if you have some, at the moment we've got very little depth on the bench, but once Payne, Williams, Gladwin are all fit, hopefully not too long, it gives us a bit of something to come off the bench and create chances. So whether Payne is a shoe-in for Saturday, I personally probably wouldn't start him. I might bring him on depending on how the game is progressing. But yeah, I'd probably start with him if Gladwin's not fit, purely because he does his work rate is just phenomenal, and he does run into those little pockets. I'm not sure I see a place on the pitch for him and Williams for 90 minutes, because I think they can be very similar. But we've missed him enormously. We've missed his goals, we've missed his work rate, we've missed his creativity. Are there signs that he's going to be back for Saturday? He wasn't even on the bench, was he?
Well, we'll see. I mean, the point is this: we don't know whether Gladwin and Williams might be fit for Saturday. That's another thing, isn't it? Because Gladwin sort of struggled on Saturday when he went off, so we don't know. I mean, it's early in the week. They'll have to assess it. I agree with Sean. If we edge into the playoffs, it would be brilliant financially. It would mean interest to the end of the season, hopefully. The crowd levels would hold up. And, of course, the playoff game would be televised. It would be a further dent into that debt. Fingers crossed. P.S. regarding Harry McCurdy, I was watching kids' football yesterday. One lad scored and he did the McCurdy celebration. We have to enjoy him, a cult hero already. Ultimately, is Ben Garner the man to take the club forward? Discuss, please. Well, we'll get onto that in a minute. And Jonathan says Gladwin looked injured early on Saturday. Maybe wonder if he was carrying that knot into the game. Well, Rob, that is a big factor on Saturday. We don't know how they're going to be, do we? They may not even be fit for Saturday, so we'll have to see.
No, it's a really good point. I mean, Gladwin has been held together by tape for the last couple of games as well, hasn't he? You could see with his leg as well. So I think it potentially was an accident waiting to happen. One of the correspondents you read out a message from a minute ago, Vic, touched on a really good point for me. 4-3-3. You've got to have in that formation two players who are prepared to take players on in wide positions. What suited us in the first half of the season? Kane Kessler-Hayden, okay, not necessarily the best defender in the world, and that will come in his game, I'm sure. But he gave you options down that right-hand side of the pitch. He would do things. His productivity, his end result, left a lot to be desired, to be fair. We left a lot of goals out there from either his poor crossing and shooting or people not getting on the end of decent crosses that he put in. But he was the outlet ball. And Iandolo down the other side, not to the same level, but also got up and down the pitch in the same way. We suited 3-5-2 when we had Kane Kessler-Hayden here. We don't suit 3-5-2 when we're looking at Rob Hunt as a wing-back. Rob Hunt is a really steady fullback and a very, very good fullback at this level. He was in the team of the season 2 years ago, so it shows you how good he is. But he is not going to get down to the byline and cross balls into the penalty area. That's not his game. So it felt to me, until Saturday, that we were playing a system that didn't suit our players. On Saturday, we found a system that suited the 11 that were on the pitch. Now he's got to go and do that every week, Ben Garner. He's got to find a system that suits not only the way that we want to play, but also to combat the opposition. Taking Andy's point, long throws into the penalty area, that's what killed us against Carlisle. You must have Jake O'Brien winning headers and in the right position to do that on Saturday. He's your height at the back. All things like that will start to improve our position this year. But Jack Payne, going back to the key point, he is our source of creativity. He has been that first half of the season. Him alongside Louis Reed, they have found passes in this division that most players can't find. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Jack Payne behind Josh Davison, because his runs could very easily be found by Jack Payne. And if it does, then we might see a lot of goals from Davison come the end of the season.
Jamie, I presume you would put Jack Payne in if he was fit?
Yeah, I tend to echo. I'm not sure Carlisle away on a really, really cold, wet Saturday is maybe the best time to bring him back. But if he's available, absolutely. I think he's a shoo-in. I'm not sure I can see a team that's got Payne, McCurdy, and Barry in though. That feels like three very very similar or players that are a bit of a luxury. So I think that might be a bit of an issue. But I tend to agree. I think Garner's got to find the right formation and put round pegs in round holes and square pegs in square holes and go with that, rather than necessarily being rigid and sticking to whatever formation he wants to play and fitting players into it. I think that way we'll probably have more success on a regular basis. But why change a team at the moment? If you can, I'd pick the same team and see if we can find a formation to stick with.
Yep, lots of comments coming in from Richard. For those of us north of the border, Carlisle away got marked on the calendar back in the summer. Only game we can get to in 2 hours. Can't tell you how excited this house was on Saturday. The 3-0 win and Iandolo McCurdy Widdersbury, just a perfect setup for our local game. Bring on Carlisle. Fair enough. Well, it'd be good to see you there. Let's go back to this question here. Ian says, panels... thoughts on Aguiar's performance on Saturday? I thought he was brilliant, a real surprise, and didn't look out of place at all. I think we kind of commented a little earlier. Jamie's turned his room upside down for some reason. There we are. We've had trouble with Rob's cupboard.
Sorry,
and now Jamie's room is turned upside down. So interesting. Right, let's go back to 1 or 2 of these questions. And Ian says also, question for the panel: if and when Conroy regains fitness, would they bring him back in as a captain or make him wait and earn his place? Andy?
The latter at the moment. Like we say, we don't know what system Garner will play going forward. We don't know whether that was a one-off on Saturday, but and I know, Scunthorpe were not the greatest side, but exactly what Rob said, that side fitted the players, the player, the system. With Rob Hunt being right back, it just fitted, and 2 big centre halves there. I don't really see where Dion comes into that system at the moment, so he might have to bide his time on the bench. I mean, he'd be more than effective, centre half. He has been for us for a number of seasons. So, but I don't see him coming in at the moment.
Anna?
Above all, I dislike the fact that some elements of the Swindon support have to have a scapegoat.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
whatever his performances have been, and I think he would probably admit himself they haven't been up to scratch in quite a few of the recent games he was playing. He didn't deserve to be jeered when he was substituted off. So that's the first point I'd make, really. Whether he comes straight back into the side, I think a lot of that depends on whether we continue with a flat back 4, whether we go to a 5 again, or we go to wing backs. There's definitely a place for him in the run in. We need as many bodies as we can get. So hopefully, mentally he's okay, because anyone who's taking that amount of unfair stick is going to suffer from it. I think there's not just Conroy, is there? We need all those unfit players back. We need them ready and fighting for places, and the competition for places is going to be important as well. So O'Brien and Cooper cannot think that is it for them this season. We need somebody pushing them to keep playing well. So let's see. But I hope his head is right, and I hope that Garner and the backroom staff are giving those lads all the support they need. We're going to talk about the Garner question as well. Have we got time for that?
Well, if you want to talk about it. Off you go.
Well, Ben Garner, I think, as this is his 70-odd. He's managed 70-odd senior games, hasn't he? So he's clearly someone who's still learning. He's working hard. He's thinking about options. He's changing formation. So, to my mind, give him a break, give him time, let him develop those younger players and bring them through. But that's the way I see it at the moment. As opposed to, for example, I don't think we're going to have much time to talk about this, someone like Sheridan, who's never going to learn anything new. Give me Ben Garner any time above John Sheridan.
Although we'll get onto the relegation scrap in a minute, because obviously we've got to talk about Carlisle, but he's doing all right up there, and then of course he's looked upon as a bit of a
somehow.
Yes, I know. here's an interesting one on Conroy, and I've often thought this, Rob. Conroy in a Ross McLaren role. I mean, I'm not sure we played like that anymore, but and also Danny says, what about in a defensive midfield player, especially with his range of passing? You see, the thing is, I think if you look at it, the sweeper role is ideal for somebody like that. He can hit a 60-yard pass without even blinking, can't he? So what about that?
Well, I think for me, there's a couple of things I just mentioned quickly on the Dion Conroy situation. People have got very short memories. In the summer, he was one of a few players who was still prepared to stick by this club when we were in all sorts of trouble. And he will always have my admiration for that. Irrespective of how good a footballer he becomes through his career, he was one of those players who stood up, one of those people who stood up and fought for our club at the very back end when a lot of people were happy to kick it down. So I will never do that to Dion Conroy, that's for sure. But in terms of his position within the squad and within the team, you always play the players who are in possession if they're doing well. And there's no doubt Jake O'Brien and Cooper, both Brandon Cooper, got themselves a clean sheet as two centre halves.
Yeah, that point's been made by Kevin. Clean sheet, why change it? And
absolutely, and I think he has to bide his time. But when he comes back, when he's fit for sure, you've got an extra body who's got real experience now to be able to be part of your squad. Maybe it's a little word in his ear to say, look, we don't want him picking the ball up from the goalkeeper every 2 minutes and passing it sideways. We're trying to play a slightly different style now. Let's hope that's the way that we continue. But the Ross McLaren role, I think the only problem with that is that you've got to kick out Louis Reed if you put him there, or you've got to play him in a slightly different way. And I don't think anybody in a Swindon persuasion at the minute would want Louis Reed out of your team.
No.
So unless you're prepared, possibly in a game where you would want to play two defensive central midfield players. So possibly as at Tranmere, if we'd have played him alongside Reed, if he'd have been available in there, that may have worked. But certainly not against most of the teams at home. You want to be sticking to a formation like we've got.
Okay. Just a quick comment, Jamie, and I'll ask you another question on Conroy. Would you bring him back in, or would he have to bide his time? I mean, I've got to say, whenever we've spoken to him on here, he's told us about his tough times when he was out injured, and boy, he's been through some tough times. Mentally, that took a big toll on him, and that's something that I think about whenever people talk about Dion Conroy and have a go at him. So, where are you with this?
I wouldn't bring him straight back in, but then I think we're going into a period of 2 games a week. So we're going to need rotation over those games. I don't see anyone in that back 4 or so necessarily playing every one of those games. So I think he's got to be part of that. And who knows, we might have some of those games where we need to switch between a 5 and a 4 or whatever's at the back. But you can't drop Reed. That's the problem. I agree with that. I think we saw that with the 2 games he was missing, how important he was to the team. So unfortunately, I think it's a case of Conroy probably waiting for his opportunity, because the 2 guys that have come in and onto the back 4 have done well. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that just makes maybe Conroy come back a better player.
Steve says Garner's learning his trade at Swindon, which goes along with what Anna said. Right, I'm going to get to Anna last on this because I kind of know what her thoughts are. But Andy says, what about the reception for the general? Jamie, what do you want? What do you want to say about that?
Look, I think it was all, at the end of the day, it was all because he never got a chance to say goodbye in the first place. So I think there's an element for me of he was part of a great season. He was part of something that happened well. People didn't get a chance to thank him for that. So I kind of get it. Whether spending most of the game cheering him rather than the team is quite right, I kind of don't necessarily agree with that. But hopefully that's done now, isn't it? I think he's had his thanks, and let's move on to the next game.
Yeah, Andy, I think the reception at the end when he walked around the pitch on his own, I thought that was lovely. Yeah, and hey, why wouldn't you? Simple as that, really. But I don't know about during the game. That's the big talking point, isn't it?
No, I don't think I've ever heard a team cheering another player through the game. That was a bit bizarre. I mean, I wanted him to play the way he did. It was just lovely to watch him. He'd be in your 5-a-side team anywhere, any day of the week, wouldn't he? Him and Paul Scholes, I think, would be the dream team. He never loses the ball, hardly at all. But you saw his. Shall we say? You saw probably why he's not with Swindon this year, this season, because he had lost that little bit of. He wasn't bombing around like we know him and love him, and obviously last season would have really taken its toll if he was been playing injured so long. So it was great to see him. But I wanted to, show my appreciation before and after the game, which
Rob?
I did.
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more I can add to that, Vic. To be honest, I think that I'm well known for being one of the General's biggest fans. I thought that season where we won the title, he was just immense, and he was absolutely what we needed in there. And it was, as Andy's just said, last season was a step too far for him because he was being played time and time again with physical problems. It had all caught up with him. And I don't think he'll recover it. I'd love to think he would, but at his age, I don't think his career is going to take an upward step now. I think it was the right move for him to go to a club a little bit further down the table. Hopefully he'll get some good game time there and he'll get his performance level up to a really good standard again. But the time and place to be supporting a player like that who's coming back to your ground is before and after the game and not during.
Sean's made this very point, which I was going to bring in actually. Steve White, when he scored the winner for Hereford at ours, he got a standing ovation, if you remember rightly, which annoyed Steve McMahon immensely, if I remember. Right, I'm going to sort of move back a bit because now I'm going to ask.
Oh, you're going to let you? Yeah, you're going to let me have a go. Right?
Yeah, right. It's rant time.
Yeah,
away you go.
The issue I had with the support that Grant got on Saturday. As everybody said, I'm a massive fan of Anthony Grant. So let's just clear that out for starters. Is that they were singing his name when the opposition were taking an attacking free kick into our penalty area. How ridiculous is that? That is just, it's beyond the pale, to be honest. After the game, fantastic. Let him walk round, let him get his applause, let him have a proper chance to say goodbye, but not during the game. And in fact, last season, he wasn't even very good, was he? I don't know that anybody was very good. His season for us was the promotion season under Wellens, where he was fantastic. And he deserved that applause. But do not sing an opposition player's name during the game, especially not when the opposition are attacking. It's just crazy. Well, what do the Swindon players think? Okay, I'm going to stop now.
Done? I think she's done.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
Right, let's I was going to make this point. Time's against us, but I was going to quickly make this point. Ellis Iandolo, the most improved player in the Swindon team, without question.
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Although, of course, he got injured at Port Vale when he was playing very well a season or so back. So I think he's been terrific this season, and
the most versatile, Vic, as well.
Yeah, he's been as consistent as anybody. So I think it'd be lovely to talk to him at some point. And we should also make the point: Jojo Wallacott made a couple of really crucial saves as well on Saturday, which were quite instrumental in getting that victory. Right, let's talk about. We should also say Harry McCurdy, of course, has got the PFA League 2 Fans Player of the Month award for January, so he's doing okay. Right, let's talk about Carlisle then. Andy, I think we're all going, aren't we? If we're all going, nod our heads. Yeah, we're all going. Yeah. So here we are, Carlisle away on Saturday. What do we reckon?
Well, like we said earlier, they surprised us, didn't they? First game of the season, they were much stronger, much more physical than us. I'd say we all felt they had 12 men, and they've really surprised me at how poor they've been. What was it? They haven't won a home game since the 8th of January. There you go. They've lost their last 4 and drawn their last 1, which on Saturday against Colchester. So I'll still take a point, I think, though, Saturday, because it's Carlisle away. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I'll take a point.
All right. You mentioned earlier about Mr. Sheridan, Anna. Well, Carlisle are now just 2 above Oldham. So it could be that if we beat them on Saturday and Oldham get a win, we could help Mr. Sheridan get out of the relegation zone. How about that?
Yeah, that's not something I'd like to see, particularly as a result of what we might do to Carlisle. If it is a byproduct, then so be it. I've never seen us lose at Carlisle, but I've never seen us lose at Tranmere before Tuesday. So that's that doesn't say a lot. I think, and Andy's right. It's, you probably say okay now to a point. It's a long way to go. The weather forecast sounds like it's pretty horrific, and if it's anything like Barrow, it's going to be, one of those wet and windy days that suits the home team better than us, because they know the conditions better than us. They know the pitch. I think we might still nick a 1-0 win, but it's a long way to go. So
yeah.
we'll see.
Yes, memorable occasions going to Carlisle, of course. Memorable Tuesday night with a 3-0 thumping Ben Tozer's last game. H. McCurdy doing rather well against us a couple of seasons back.
Yeah.
And that stand, which is kind of past the away end, or what that terracing, it's a bizarre stand. Rob, what do you reckon?
I'm very much in the camp that it's roll your sleeves up time. This is going to show the mettle for that squad. I have to say, I think this is the perfect test. A week's training, get everybody bedded in properly. They've not had a free week since transfer window ended. So hopefully they're out on that training pitch at the moment, thinking about the worst possible scenario, which is Carlisle on a windy, rainy Saturday in February. And they'll go up there and they'll put a show on. I'm actually quite confident on Saturday. I think we're going to go up there and get a comfortable victory.
Well, we've got 46 points from 30 games. We're currently 8th in the table. Jamie, your thoughts? Long old day. I think we're all looking forward to that coach journey, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I want to be optimistic as well, but I'm not quite sure we do anything easily. so I can't quite be with Rob on that one. But I don't see us keeping a clean sheet. So I think we're going to have to score 2. So I think it's going to be 2-1.
Okay, fair enough. Well, if you're going on SAS travel, they're leaving the County Ground, I believe, at 7 a.m.
On Friday.
On Saturday morning, and then meeting other people in Gloucestershire at the unearthly hour of 7:30. Anyway, Chris, thank you very much indeed. We're all present and correct after that, and lots to discuss. We could have gone on for hours, to be honest. There's lots to get through, but I think we just about covered everybody's points.
We've had loads and loads of questions, so I apologise if we didn't get to yours. So yeah, brilliant discussions. It's unusual we have so much discussions after a home win. It's usually after a defeat that we have most of the discussions, so that's good. So just a quick one. We're not here next Monday. We are live in the Legends Lounge. Please do come and join us. It will be a good evening. It's the first live event back for the Supporters Club, so we'll see as many of you as possible. So if you can join us, please do. And don't forget, tomorrow night we have the legend that is Mr. Paul Caddis on. So 7 o'clock start, and we should hear some good stories from Paul. Maybe Mr. Ferry might get a mention now and again. You don't know. So we'll see. So thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you all tomorrow night if possible. Thank you very much.